So a word for parents. Can I get real with you real quick? Is God silent? Has God been silent? Be honest with yourselves. There can be so many reasons why you may perceive that God is silent. And here's one reason. It may be because the choice of sinning is what is hardening your heart. Maybe you're busy. Maybe you're so busy that you feel like you barely have time for your kids, let alone your spouse. And God? You got 5 minutes, God. Hurry up. But how about this? Maybe you already know what God is going to say, because if you want God to speak, guys, get into the Word. Get into worship. Go fellowship with a brother or sister in the Lord. But maybe you don't want to do that because you're afraid of what you already know God's going to say. And so you avoid Him like the plague, and you don't want to hear it. Parents, let me be as blunt as I possibly can. Your kids need Jesus. They need to see you as an example. They need you to educate them, to encourage them, to disciple them. And here's the thing, church, and here's the biggest warning. If you don't step up to it, the world will. I posted something on Facebook yesterday, and it was a quote by Eugene Peterson. He's the one that authored The Message. And he said this: as a pastor, I introduce people into the real world and train them to live in it. Do I have anybody going, ooh? Okay, I'll say it again. All right. As a pastor, I introduce people into the real world and train them to live in it. I love what Nancy Funk commented. I got to rat her out, guys. She said this: that's not just a pastor's goal, but should be for all of us, right? Can I respond to Nancy real quick? Nancy, I don't know where you're at. Absolutely. Church, you and I had the responsibility to tell our children and our grandchildren and our lineage about God and to train them into the real world. One last thing before we move on. You may be sitting here, you might be squirming a little bit, right? You might be a little upset because maybe your grandfather or your father or mother, whoever, right, didn't invest in you. Maybe you're like, wow, well, they didn't tell me about God. And that's something that you need to depend on the Holy Spirit to help you to forgive them. But don't let their disobedience, don't let their laziness or ignorance or neglect affect your children. One of my favorite quotes from a pastor was this: don't complain about the father you never had, be the father you never had. Let's flip it for moms. Don't complain about the mother you never had, be the mother you never had. Let's talk about pastors. Don't complain about the pastor you never had, be the pastor you never had. It's up to you. And in studying this, I felt like I had to come up with my own version. Is this: don't complain that no one set the trail for you to follow. Be a trailblazer. Blaze that trail for your future generations. Do it for your kids. Because our kids, grandkids, and future generations will be affected either by your obedience or by your rebellion.